you doing? I don't know about any of you out there, but I grew up with a parent where my parent insisted that we do chores. I grew up with a parent that designed a household where one of the responsibilities of the children of the house was to clean the house. Even if it was a split responsibility, one day, 1 week, one person would clean the living room. That same week, the other person would do the dishes and clean the kitchen. But every day, that was a chore to make sure that when you got out of school, when you got home, you might have done your homework, but you had to make sure your chores were done. You had to make sure that the house was clean. You had to make sure that your bedroom was clean. So what is it about this cleanness? And does it make any sense? I'm a firm believer that the spirit within man knows exactly what it's here and designed to do. But I also believe that us as human beings, for the lack of understanding of things, that we don't comprehend the signals of the body, and we don't comprehend the repetitiveness or the patterns of the spirit within the body. And since it's hard to understand because maybe it has not been explained to us, it is hard to interpret what we are going through spiritually or inwardly and what we are dealing with. But it appears in this time that we're dealing with a home that has not been clean. And should it be clean? Why do our parents insist that the house or a building that is built by man's hands, the image of man, why inside the house why would a person want the house to be clean? They don't want any dirt in it. Some houses you even have to put on booties before you even enter the door because they don't want any dirt from your shoes from the outside being tracked on the inside. It's about being clean. But not only that, it's about the method that it takes to get something clean. And what does this have to do with our bodies? I do believe that it's very important that God did give us the responsibility to clean our own house. When conviction happens within the body, there's a building that is going to take place. Either you're going to build or rebuild yourself, or you might build or rebuild a structure. And the structure that man has built, the buildings with electricity inside of them, is actually maybe a replica of us in God's image, except for the buildings or these houses that we live in is in man's image. But even in man's image of the body of the house, it is important in some households, and sometimes most households, that the house is clean. And if it is a cluttered house, trust me, the people who are in the house have convinced themselves, have transformed their thinking so that the mess doesn't bother them. But inwardly they know and they are convicted that that house is dirty. And if you was to come in that dirty house, they might even get to explaining that they're in the midst of cleaning and that they had people over, and they might just start talking. You not even saying nothing, but because of the quietness and because of their own guilt and what is going on in their head because of the unfilthiness of the house, they might start giving you explanations on why the house is in disarray. But the spirit of man knows the importance of cleanliness inside of the body. So let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 23, and we're going to read verses 9 through 14. And we're going to see how important it is that the inner man in you, the inner God in you, is exposed to cleanliness. And we start off in verse 9. It says, when the army we're going to say is a body of people, of armed people. Because if you have an army, there's a group of people, a body of people, or there might be one person in that army, but they're armed. And it says when the army goes out against your enemies. And the enemy that I feel that we are facing today is feeling dirty, feeling unworthy, feeling unclean. But it says when the army goes out against your enemies, your personal enemies. So these are armed forces. My Bible, to me, it has a body of armed people, and it has stories about armed people. And I learn a lot from these stories, from the body of people that are inside of the Bible. And it says when the army or the body of people, even your words can be armed so that they can take the enemy captive in your mind. It says when the army or when there is a battle, then as a result, keep yourself from every or all wicked things, right? Or every wicked thing. And wickedness just means unhappiness. So when we're in a battle, when we're having a confrontation within the mind, we are to keep away from anything unhappy. There might be something in this unhappiness, but when we see dirt, when we see uncleanness, then we have to keep ourselves from every unhappy thing. What happens when your parent came home and the house was not clean? There was an unhappiness that set in, because when they came in and when they looked at the house, it seemed like the enemy went rampant. They seen dirt and uncleanness everywhere. And right then there was a trigger and something happened. I don't know, maybe the lights went out, but something happened when the parent felt unhappy about the uncleanliness. So just in the spirit realm, just the pattern of that should give us some inclination that we have to present ourselves before the Lord our God clean. So it says when means time or timing. So there is a time when there's going to be a battle that's going to happen. And when this battle happens, we cannot afford to let unhappiness sink in. Because just like a parent who sees an unclean house, that can get angry and be violent upon the child who didn't clean the house, who had the responsibility because the parent said, clean the house. Our Lord, our God, the spirit within demands that we keep this house clean. No matter what and how dirty you might think you might be, it is your responsibility every day to make sure that you have armed forces, people, words of cleanliness that cleanses the mindset and the state that you have. So this army or this camp of armed host, You might as well say they might even be managers, individual managers, different words. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. That's an armed host. Those are words that I can use within inside of myself, or I can say, that can get my house clean. It can remove the negative energy, get rid of the dirt that I might feel inside. Because we have to be able to protect ourselves from people who might try to bring in dirt, and even the dirt within ourselves, because we can read in verse 10, it says, if there is any man. Now I'm going to say an individual or an idea. But if any man or idea among you becomes or is transformed into something unclean, right, by some occurrence, the house got dirty by some means, but we're still responsible to clean it. According to our parents, we are still responsible to clean the house. But if there's any man or idea among you who becomes or is transformed unclean, that means that you have to be paying attention to your ideas, holding captive every idea, transforming that idea into the image of Christ. But not the other way around, where your ideas become or is transferred to something unclean by some occurrence in the night, in the darkness. We might have stumbled over something in the darkness that transformed that positive energy, that positive thinking, into something negative. It happens. It says if. If is a condition. This could happen to you. You could have an idea or a person among you that has transformed, that has changed their mentality and has become unclean because of some darkness, because of the unableness to see, to be in complete darkness. But what happens after that? Then as a result, he shall go outside the camp. This unhappy individual needs to go outside the camp, outside the body of people, outside of the armed people. He shall not come inside the camp or the body. So even in this case, we want to not to be around anybody unclean, because that makes us unclean. And if we see something unclean, the spirit within rejects uncleanness. That's the reason why we don't feel good about ourselves when we think that we're dirty, because we are presenting ourselves dirty before the Lord our God, when we need to be like the children before their parents come home and clean the house. We have to be able to clean the house. It doesn't give you a method on how to clean the house. Me, I use the Bible to help clean my house. You might use something else. But the objective is for you to feel and know that you're clean, because you are the one that did the cleaning. You are the one that had the tool to get the job done. In verse 11, it says, but it shall be when evening or darkness comes. So to me, we might be a little backwards, because from 12 to 12 is 24 hours. But I do believe in the Bible days, when the sun was setting, that started a time period. So when the sun started to set, then that was the start of the day. And so when the sun started setting, right, that's when they started. That was the start, maybe, or the ending of the day. But it shall be when the evening or darkness comes, when the sun starts to fall. When the sun starts to fall, when we start to fall, that we shall wash with water. We shall wash with water. Wash, be cleansed. this is a metaphor to understand that water brings forth cleansingness, just like baptism. Baptism has always been in the picture. Being clean has always been in the picture. Washing oneself, making oneself clean has always been in the picture. That he shall wash with water. And when the sun sets, when it completely disappears, when it starts to go below the horizon, he may come into the camp. Now, what does that mean that he can come into the camp? Because now you have transformed that unclean idea, or that person has transformed and became clean again because of the washing. But it shall be when evening comes, right, that he should come in. But this is after the washing. This is not before the washing. That he shall wash with water. And when the sun sets, then he should come in. He's coming in clean. He's coming in positive. We have to keep cleanness around us, and not dirt, not anything that makes us feel dirty, because it triggers something else. And again, we can see it even when it comes to man's glory in a house. In Ephesians chapter 4, verses 26 through 27, Ephesians chapter 4, verses 26 through 27, it says, be or exist angry, right? Or be fermented. You know, the bubbles and everything inside decayed fruit. Be fermented or be angry, and do not sin or abandon yourself or feel dirty. And do not let the sun go down or set on your wrath, because by then you done washed yourself. You done made yourself clean. It says that do not let the sun go down or set on your wrath, or your strong displeasure of an offense. You do not want the sun to set on your strong displeasure of an offense. You want to be able to cleanse yourself, because if you're clean, then you won't get offensive. If you believe and acknowledge your cleanliness, your holiness, your separatedness, then you won't have a strong displeasure of an offense, nor give place to the devil, meaning that you're not going to get yourself out of maybe place and give place or give room for the false accuser. Because when the sun sets and we get angry and we see dirt, all kind of false accusations come out, because now we're blinded, we can't see, we're stumbling, and what comes out of us might not be good, and most of the time it's not, because we start speaking things that are unclean, because we've seen uncleanliness inside our home. Now we're trying to throw dirt and get the dirt out and throw it in somebody else's home. Let's go back to verse 12. Also, you shall have a place outside the camp, outside the body, where you may go out, and you shall have a implement or a tool among your equipment. Amongst my equipment, my Bible is my tool. I love reading it. It inspires me. It gives me encouraging messages. I have delightful revelations from it. And where you may go out, and you shall have a implement, or you shall have a tool among your equipment. And when you sit down, or when you go down like the sun, right? When you sit down outside, you shall dig with it. That means that there's work involved, just like cleaning the house. There's going to be some work involved on your behalf. You're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to do the digging. You shall dig or create a pit, right? A pit with it. and turn, right? Transform, turn and cover your refuse or the trash inside the house. You take the trash inside the house, the negative energy, the uncleanness, you dig a pit and you put it in and you cover it. The main thing is not to see it. That's the main purpose, is that we're not supposed to see or visualize anything unclean inside of the house. Now, if that's important inside this house, not to have negative energy inside this house, how much so if you're supposed to be in a church building where you're supposed to go and congregate. Now, in the Bible, the church is the called out ones. So I'm assuming that the church is supposed to be a bunch of people who are called out, who know they're called, who have made themselves clean before the Lord their God, meaning that they have transformed their negative energy into the image of God. And these type of people are clean and meeting together as a body. And if one of those people become dirty, or if one of those people start behaving as they're unclean, as they're not worthy, that person is supposed to be removed. Because now that person is going to affect the whole congregation. And we can see that in churches today because there's a lot of pain and a lot of dirt. A lot of stuff that people are going through because they're not being helped to be able to heal themselves. And they're carrying on this dirt and they're going and they're spending all this money. Just think about it. If the word of God says that we're supposed to be clean before the Lord our God and present ourselves clean, but you go to an organization that says you're dirty, that you're full of sin, and that you need to come and be part of this organization, this man's glory, in order to be clean again. There's something wrong with that, because that means that in that building, in man's image, there's a lot of dirt, and a lot of people are getting hurt because there's dirt. And that is the reason why we have to make sure that we are all clean, and that when we meet amongst one another, that we are all clean. And if there's anybody or anything that is unclean, whether it comes out of us within our house, or if there's a person among us, we have to remove that so that we can stay positive. The key is to stay positive, to stay focused, and to present yourself clean before the Lord your God. Because in verse 14, it says, for or because the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp. So you have a lion that walks, or the devil that seeks and walks like a roaring lion within you. And then you have God that walks in the midst of your camp, right? Amidst of the body, to deliver, right? Or to save you and give your enemies over to you. That's what this inner man does. It helps deliver the enemy, the dirt. It helps deliver the dirt into your hands so you can get rid of it. You don't really even have to find the dirt. The Lord your God inspects and brings the dirt to you so that you can discard of it and get rid of it. Over to you, therefore your camp, or the body of people, shall be holy, clean and separated, that he may see no unclean thing among you and turn away from you. The objective is to have a clean house. Not worried about the clean house that man has created, but be more concerned about cleaning the house that is in God's image. Cleaning the house that he has given us to dwell in, making sure that we are clean and holy before the Lord our God. Whatever you have to do to encourage yourself today, do that. Whatever you have to do to make yourself positive and to be happy, do that. Get rid of any thoughts in your mind that make you feel unclean and bury those, because they will do you no good. Because the only thing that the inner you accepts is holiness and cleanliness. Thanks again for listening.